Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more
what I saw, it looked to me like he was negotiating.
Tonight's feed is exploding with claims you won't believe. Multiple viral posts say a live television moment turned into a shockwave, with Mel Gibson allegedly torching Governor Gavin Newsom while Tyrus added fuel from the sidelines. Fans are shocked, timelines split, and emotions ran high as snippets, captions, and hot takes stacked up by the minute. Reminder before we dive in. This is commentary on what people online are saying and sharing. We're discussing reports and reactions, not confirming any facts. Still, the energy is impossible to ignore. Some viewers insist the exchange was a brutal reality check. Others say it was pure performance, and the debate has everyone glued to their screens. Did a Hollywood icon and a ringside powerhouse really collide with politics in real time? Or is this just the internet turning sparks into fireworks? One clip purports to show pointed jabs about image versus results. Another suggests the studio atmosphere shifted from polite to tense in seconds. The crowd noise, the quick camera cuts, the stunned faces, if true, look like a scene built for ratings. And in the middle of it all is a governor with national ambitions, a star with nothing to lose, and a commentator who never pulls punches. Let's unpack the storm. People say they witnessed. The studio lights were low, cameras humming, and the air heavy with the kind of tension that only live television can create. People online claim that even before Mel Gibson spoke, something about his presence felt electric. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't performing. His posture said everything. This wasn't a movie scene. Tyrus sat beside him, relaxed in his chair, but his expression carried a sharp edge, the look of someone who already knew a storm was about to break. Across the table, Governor Gavin Newsom appeared calm, the kind of calm that looks rehearsed. His hair was perfect, his suit crisp, his trademark grin flashing briefly for the cameras. What viewers didn't know, according to the circulating posts, was that beneath that polished exterior, nerves were beginning to show. Producers whispered in their headsets. A few audience members shifted in their seats, and one assistant reportedly mouthed the words, "This could go south." Mel leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, and spoke in a tone that was neither angry nor polite. It was sharp, deliberate, and carried the weight of frustration. "Governor," he began, "you keep telling people California is thriving, but the footage, the fires, the tent cities, they tell a different story." The room went silent, a silence so deep that even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Tyrus smirked, looking directly at the governor, then at the audience, as if silently asking, "You hearing this?" Online commentators describe what followed as the spark that lit the blaze. Newsom smiled again, that smooth, practiced grin, and replied in what appeared to be an attempt at humor. "Mel, we're rebuilding stronger than ever. The challenges we face are complex, but California leads the way." But Gibson didn't blink. He shook his head slowly and said, "That's what you said the year my house burned down." There was a flicker of emotion in his eyes. Grief, anger, exhaustion, all blending into a single glare that could have cut through stone. Audience members reportedly gasped, and Tyrus leaned back with a low whistle, muttering, "Well, there it is." People on social media later dissected every micro-expression from that moment. The way Newsom's smile faltered for half a second, the nervous swallow, the quick glance toward the producers. It wasn't a political debate anymore. It was raw confrontation. Tyrus decided to step in, his voice breaking the silence. "You know what's funny?" he said, tilting his head. "If this were a wrestling match, the crowd would already know who's getting slammed. It's not the guy who's been through the fire. It's the one pretending to hold the hose." The audience laughed, a mixture of shock and discomfort, while the governor tried to regain composure. Mel leaned back but didn't let up. He continued with a calmness that made his words sting more. "It's not about politics," he said. "It's about people watching their homes turn to ash while leaders chase cameras instead of solutions." According to reports, even the production crew froze, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the scene unfold. Newsom's response came a moment later, careful and controlled. "Mel, I respect your passion," he said. "But leadership is about balance, about handling crises while maintaining optimism." Gibson gave a short laugh, one without amusement. "Optimism doesn't rebuild what's already gone," he said quietly. From there, the exchange supposedly turned into a tug-of-war between image and authenticity. Tyrus threw in the occasional jab, adding both humor and heat to the conversation. At one point, he quipped, Some of us don't have time for rehearsed optimism. We're too busy dealing with real problems. That line went viral, clipped, and shared across millions of feeds within hours. Fans online claimed that Newsom's confident persona began to crack. His replies grew shorter, his smile thinner. Behind the cameras, producers gestured frantically, trying to guide the show back on track. Reports suggest the tension wasn't just in the studio. Friends of Gibson, according to gossip pages, had warned him not to get political again, not after years of controversy. But Mel didn't seem to care. One insider claimed, "He's been quiet for too long. Losing everything in those fires changed him." This wasn't about politics, it was personal. That perspective quickly spread, reshaping public opinion from celebrity rant to man speaking truth to power. On the other side, supporters of the governor accused Gibson of grandstanding, of using tragedy as a weapon for attention. Comment sections turned into battlefields, hashtags multiplied, and every frame of the broadcast became digital ammunition for one side or the other. Through it all, Tyrus remained the unpredictable wild card. When a panelist tried to interrupt, saying, "Gentlemen, let's keep this civil," Tyrus laughed, a booming laugh that echoed across the set. "Civil," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Tell that to the people dodging tents on their way to work. Tell that to families sleeping in cars because leadership forgot how to lead." The audience erupted again, a mix of cheers and murmurs while Newsom pressed his lips together, offering a polite nod but avoiding direct eye contact. By the time the segment neared its midpoint, viewers online described it as a verbal heavyweight match. Not shouting, not chaos, but precise strikes disguised as conversation. Mel played the weary truth-teller, Tyrus the sarcastic commentator, and Newsom the polished politician trying not to lose his cool. Analysts watching from home claimed it was one of those rare moments when Hollywood, politics, and pop culture collided in real time. Within an hour of broadcast, clips were already being edited into memes, reaction videos, and analysis threads. Hashtags like Great Hair Zero Leadership and Mel vs. Gavin began trending simultaneously. As the studio lights dimmed slightly for a commercial break, cameras caught a brief glimpse of Gibson rubbing his temples, eyes distant, almost sorrowful. Tyrus leaned toward him and whispered something that made Mel smirk faintly. Meanwhile, Newsom adjusted his tie, glanced at his reflection in a nearby monitor, and took a slow breath. Whatever came next, everyone knew the internet wasn't going to let it die quietly. The break ended, and the camera lights blinked back to life. What had begun as a tense exchange was now a slow-burning drama that refused to settle. When the hosts returned on air, Mel Gibson sat motionless, eyes fixed on the governor across from him. Tyrus shifted in his chair, his hands clasped together, the weight of anticipation hanging thick in the room. The audience sensed it too. The polite laughter that usually followed commercial cuts was gone, replaced by the restless silence of people waiting to see what line would be crossed next. "We were just talking about leadership during crises," the host said carefully, trying to ease the tension. "Mel, you've lived through some of the worst wildfires this state has seen. What do you believe went wrong?" Gibson exhaled slowly, his voice calm but heavy. "What went wrong is that no one was listening," he said. "Families were calling for help, firefighters were begging for resources, and leadership was too busy taking pictures at press conferences. I'm not saying this to embarrass anyone. I'm saying it because the truth has been buried under spin." Newsom straightened in his seat, his practiced confidence returning. "Mel, I understand your pain," he began. "But we've invested more in fire prevention and relief than any administration before us." Gibson gave a small, humorless laugh. "I'm sure the numbers look great on paper," he said, "but you can't measure the smell of ash or the sound of a child asking why their home is gone." His words hit like a quiet explosion, not loud but impossible to ignore. Tyrus leaned forward, adding fuel to the fire. "The problem isn't data," he said. "It's disconnect. People don't trust charts anymore. They trust results." The host tried to interject, but the conversation had taken a life of its own. Reports later claimed even the producers backstage decided to let it run. The rawness was magnetic. Mel's voice carried the kind of emotion that turns a moment into a movement, and Newsom, though still composed, started to glance nervously toward the studio clock, as if hoping time itself would end the conversation. Tyrus noticed, smirking as he muttered, "Don't worry, Governor. We'll wrap it up before your next photo op." The jab drew a roar of laughter from the audience, though a few gasps followed, sensing how far things had gone. Gasps followed, sensing how far things had gone. Meanwhile, the internet was already ablaze. Snippets from the first half were being remixed with dramatic background music, captions like "Mel speaks truth" and "Tyrus drops bombshells," spreading across social platforms. Fans wrote that it felt less like an interview and more like an intervention. Others accused the network of staging it for ratings, while a few sympathized with the governor, saying anyone would look cornered when outnumbered by two of Hollywood's loudest voices. But the moment that really set the tone came next. Something that wasn't scripted, something no one could have predicted. Gibson turned his gaze toward the audience, not the governor. "I lost people I cared about," he said softly, "and I watched officials promise they'd do better every single time. I'm tired of promises." There was no anger in his tone, only exhaustion. A few in the crowd nodded. Some even clapped quietly. For a second, the spotlight moved off politics and onto humanity. But Newsom wasn't ready to surrender the narrative. "Mel, I truly empathize," he said, leaning forward. "But leadership isn't about perfection. It's about trying, failing, and trying again. We can't turn back time. But we can move forward." Tyrus laughed under his breath. "Move forward? Sure. But maybe look where you're walking first." The host tried to regain control, reminding viewers that these are strong opinions and developing stories being discussed. But it was too late. The chemistry between the three men had spiraled into something beyond politics. Mel represented frustration, Tyrus embodied mockery, and Newsom became the symbol of composure cracking under scrutiny. Audiences watching at home couldn't look away. It was raw, unpredictable television, the kind that feels like truth, even when it's just perception. Off-camera sources later claimed tensions extended beyond the set. One makeup artist supposedly heard Gibson mutter, "They never listen until it's too late." Another crew member swore they saw Newsom pacing backstage afterward, phone in hand, whispering to aides about damage control. None of it could be verified, but that didn't stop it from spreading. People love drama more than facts, and this had both. Clips were reinterpreted into conspiracies. Some said Mel and Tyrus planned it. Others insisted it was genuine frustration boiling over. Everyone had an angle. Back on set, the governor tried to regain moral ground. "Look," he said, gesturing toward the camera. "No one denies we've faced challenges, but progress takes time. We're rebuilding communities, restoring trust." Tyrus chuckled, glancing at Mel. "Funny," he said, "because rebuilding trust sounds a lot like rebuilding a burned house. You can't just talk about it. You have to show up with a hammer." The audience laughed again, and the host shot him a warning glance. Mel didn't laugh. His face softened. "People don't need speeches," he said. "They need to believe someone actually cares." For a moment, the tension broke. Even the governor nodded quietly. And then Tyrus, ever the showman, couldn't resist one last quip. "Well, at least we all agree on one thing. Great hair doesn't fix bad leadership." The audience erupted, some laughing, some clapping, some stunned that anyone had dared say it out loud. The governor gave a tight smile, adjusting his cuffs, and replied, "Well, if good grooming's a crime, I guess I'm guilty." The humor fell flat. Mel looked at him, expression unreadable, then simply said, "It's not the crime that's the issue. It's pretending there wasn't one." The cameras caught every flicker of emotion. Anger, embarrassment, defiance. The host quickly announced another short break, the music rising to mask the unease. As the lights dimmed again, Tyrus leaned toward Mel and whispered something that made him chuckle. Whatever it was, the tension had shifted, but the damage was already done. On social media, the moment was already immortalized. Hashtags climbed, opinion pieces were drafted, and by the time the show resumed, the audience knew they weren't watching politics anymore. They were watching theater dressed as truth, and no one could predict the next act. When the cameras came back on, the tone in the studio felt different. The polite facade had vanished, replaced by an undercurrent of tension so thick it almost hummed through the air. Mel Gibson leaned back in his chair, his eyes calm but alert, like a man who had decided he was done pulling punches. Tyrus adjusted his microphone, half smiling at the governor, the kind of smile that hides both amusement and challenge. Gavin Newsom looked prepared, his jaw set, his notes stacked neatly in front of him, every movement controlled. He was determined to reclaim the conversation. The host opened the floor again, her voice just a little too bright, as if hoping to dispel the weight in the room. "Governor," she said, "many viewers are asking about leadership accountability, especially when celebrities like Mel raise such strong concerns. What would you say to Californians who feel unheard?" Newsom exhaled, folded his hands, and began with the poise of a man used to microphones. "I'd say this," he replied evenly. "We've faced challenges unlike any other state. Wildfires, housing crises, climate change. But leadership is about staying the course, even when critics come from unexpected places." Gibson raised an eyebrow. "Unexpected places?" he repeated quietly. "You mean people who've lived it?" There was a pause. a small collective inhale from the audience. Tyrus grinned, sensing the crack in the armor. "Sounds like the governor just called you unexpected, Mel," he said with mock surprise. "You'd think someone who's been on every red carpet in California would count as expected by now." Laughter rippled through the crowd, but Gibson didn't smile. "I'm not here as an actor," he said softly. "I'm here as someone who watched his state burn." The camera zoomed slightly, catching the flicker of something human in Gibson's eyes. Online commentators later said that was the moment the room shifted again, from argument to empathy, even if briefly. But Newsom, perhaps sensing vulnerability, tried to counter. "Mel," he said gently, "I don't dismiss your pain, but we're working tirelessly to make things right. These issues go beyond any one person." Gibson nodded once, then leaned forward. "But they start with someone," he said, "and leadership means standing in the ashes, not above them." Tyrus clapped his hands together, half in applause, half to break the tension. "That's the line right there," he said. "Standing in the ashes, not above them. Governor, you might want to jot that down for your next speech." The audience chuckled nervously, unsure whether to laugh or hold their breath. The governor's expression tightened, his fingers tapping the edge of his note cards. "Easy to say," he murmured. "Harder to do." Tyrus tilted his head. "Then maybe start with easy. Work your way up." Reports claim that even the host, usually neutral, looked caught between admiration and alarm. She cleared her throat and tried to redirect. "Gentlemen, we've heard strong opinions tonight, but what's the way forward? What can bring Californians together?" Gibson turned to her, answering without hesitation. "Honesty," he said. "Stop pretending the system isn't broken. Stop treating public service like a photo shoot. People can forgive mistakes, but they can't forgive pretense." The studio fell into silence again, the kind that vibrates between discomfort and revelation. Newsom nodded slowly, perhaps realizing any denial now would sound hollow. "Maybe you're right," he admitted. "Maybe we focus too much on image." Tyrus leaned back, arms crossed. "There it is," he said with a grin. "Step 1. Admit the mirror doesn't fix the mess." Laughter returned, this time genuine, breaking the tension for a moment. But just when it seemed things might cool down, a new twist emerged. One of the co-hosts, flipping through her notes, brought up a quote circulating on social media. "Governor," she said carefully, "earlier today, a tweet from a former aide suggested that wildfire relief funds were delayed due to bureaucratic showmanship. Care to comment?" The governor's face went pale, just for a heartbeat, before he composed himself. "That's categorically false," he said. "The aide you're referring to was dismissed for misinformation." Gibson looked at him sharply. "Dismissed or silenced?" he asked. The studio buzzed with whispers. Tyrus let out a low whistle. "Oh, this just got good," he muttered. The host tried to intervene, but the moment had already exploded across timelines. Within seconds, clips of the exchange were circulating, online with captions like, "Mel asks the question." No one else dared, and Newsom caught off guard live. It didn't matter whether the claims were true. Perception had already taken over. Back in the studio, Newsom tried to steady his tone. "I don't engage in conspiracy talk," he said firmly. "These narratives hurt progress." Gibson didn't blink. "You call it conspiracy," he said. "People call it experience." Tyrus leaned forward, eyes sparkling. "Yeah, and experience tends to trend faster." The audience burst into laughter again, though the laughter felt uneasy. According to behind-the-scenes accounts, producers debated cutting the segment short, worried it was spiraling out of control. But the ratings graph on their monitors was spiking higher by the minute, so they let it roll. The exchange had become something bigger than a conversation. It was a collision of worlds. Celebrity outrage, political defense, and public catharsis all rolled into one. Mel's tone softened as he delivered one final thought. "This isn't about party lines," he said. "It's about people trying to live with dignity in a place that feels like it's crumbling." Tyrus added, "and leaders pretending it's all part of the plan." Even some audience members clapped openly now. The governor nodded again, but his smile no longer looked effortless. It looked strained, human, maybe even uncertain. As the segment neared its end, Tyrus turned to Gibson. "You think anything changes after tonight?" he asked. Mel looked toward the camera, his expression unreadable. "Maybe not," he said, "but sometimes the truth just needs to be said out loud, even if no one listens the first time." The lights dimmed again, signaling another break, but no one moved. The crew, the audience, even the hosts sat in stunned silence. Outside the studio, the internet roared to life, spinning the night's chaos into legend. The final segment opened with a kind of uneasy calm, the kind that comes after a storm but before anyone knows what's left standing. The audience was quieter now, their earlier laughter replaced with the heavy silence of people who had just witnessed something they couldn't quite categorize. The host spoke softly, almost reverently. "We're back," she said, her voice low, "and we want to thank our guests for an honest and passionate discussion tonight." It was the kind of line meant to restore order, but there was no going back. The energy had changed. The story had already left the studio and entered the bloodstream of the internet. Mel Gibson sat with his hands folded, his expression unreadable. Tyrus leaned back, a knowing grin still tugging at the corner of his mouth. And across from them, Gavin Newsom looked more human than polished for the first time that night. His perfect posture had softened, his shoulders slightly slumped, as if the weight of the conversation had finally caught up with him. For a few seconds, no one spoke. It was Tyrus who broke the silence. "You know," he said, glancing toward the cameras, "sometimes it's not the fire that destroys everything. It's pretending it's not burning." The line hit like a quiet thunderclap. Gibson nodded, almost approvingly. The governor sighed, glancing at his notes but leaving them untouched. "Look," he said, "I'm not here to defend perfection. California has flaws, deep ones. We're trying to fix them. But the idea that we don't care, that's just not true." Gibson tilted his head slightly. "Then prove it," he said. "Stop running from the mess. People don't want slogans. They want accountability." His tone wasn't angry anymore. It was weary, almost pleading. Tyrus watched them both, his usual sarcasm fading. "That's the thing about truth," he added quietly. "It doesn't need makeup." The host shifted in her seat, sensing something rare, a genuine pause in the performance. "Gentlemen," she said gently, "if tonight's conversation does anything, maybe it reminds us that leadership, art, and public trust all come down to one thing: connection." Gibson gave a faint smile. "Connection's great," he said, "if both sides are willing to listen." The governor nodded slowly. "Maybe I need to listen more," he admitted. "And maybe Hollywood needs to understand how complicated this really is." Tyrus chuckled softly. "Complicated's a good excuse until it becomes a habit." It was that back and forth, raw, imperfect, oddly human, that viewers couldn't stop replaying. Every moment of vulnerability, every cutting remark, every crack in the carefully crafted facade became instant digital history. Reports later claimed that even the studio crew forgot they were working. One camera operator said he'd never seen Gibson so composed, so stripped of performance. Another said the governor looked less like a politician, more like a person trying not to drown. Social media didn't wait for context. Clips flooded feeds, headlines multiplied, and hashtags like "Truth Burns Brighter" and "Mel vs. Gavin" dominated trending charts for days. But behind the spectacle, the emotional undertones deepened. Gibson's frustration wasn't just about policy, it was about loss. Tyrus's jabs weren't only jokes, they were the voice of the public, tired of spin. And Newsom's unease wasn't pure arrogance. It was the fear of losing control of his own image. One insider later revealed that after the show ended, the governor sat in his car for nearly half an hour before leaving the parking lot, scrolling through early reactions on his phone. Gibson, meanwhile, reportedly left quietly through a side exit. No entourage, no words, just a nod to a few stunned producers. Tyrus stayed behind, laughing with the audience, shaking hands like a man who knew he'd just made television history. By morning, every major talk show and gossip blog had an opinion. Some framed Gibson as the rebel truth-teller, others as a reckless provocateur. Tyrus was labeled everything from a hero to an instigator, depending on who was watching. And Gavin Newsom, once the untouchable symbol of California charisma, found himself at the center of a cultural reckoning. Late-night comedians mimicked the exchange. Parody channels remixed it into sketches, and political pundits dissected every line as if it were scripture. Yet, beneath all the noise, the same question echoed across every platform. Was this a confrontation? A breakdown? Or the moment truth slipped through the cracks of the show? A leaked behind-the-scenes clip would later add another twist. In it, Gibson and Newsom are seen shaking hands briefly after the broadcast, their expressions tense but civil. Tyrus claps both of them on the back, saying, "Hey, at least we didn't get canceled mid-segment." The moment went viral again, this time as proof that maybe, just maybe, not everything on television had to end in total war. But the damage, or the impact, depending on perspective, was done. The story lingered for weeks. Every public appearance by the governor came with questions about the exchange. Every time Gibson's name appeared in headlines, the clip resurfaced. Memes evolved, commentary deepened, and the phrase, "great hair, zero leadership," turned into a cultural punchline that refused to fade. Some fans even printed it on t-shirts. Others defended the governor, saying the viral frenzy had twisted a sincere conversation into spectacle. Yet, as one columnist put it, in the age of cameras, truth doesn't have to be pure. It just has to be watched. By the time the noise began to die down, everyone involved had moved on to their next projects, but the night remained a strange cultural artifact. Mel Gibson went back to his quiet life, declining interviews about the event. Tyrus, ever the entertainer, joked about it on air weeks later, saying, "I told them it'd trend. I just didn't say for how long." And Gavin Newsom, though publicly unfazed, began his next speech with a line that caught everyone off guard. "California's not perfect, but at least we're still standing in the ashes together." That one sentence reignited debate all over again. Some called it humility, others called it calculated, but everyone agreed on one thing. Whatever happened that night, it blurred the line between politics, performance, and personal truth forever. The cameras had stopped rolling, but the conversation hadn't. People were still arguing, still speculating, still replaying every word. And somewhere, in a quiet living room, a viewer who hadn't even cared about politics before that broadcast whispered what half the world was thinking. It didn't look fake, it looked real. And maybe, for a moment, that was enough. And that's where things stand. A single night that shook California's political image and lit up the internet like wildfire. Whether you see it as courage, chaos, or pure theater, one thing's for sure. People are still talking about it. The clips keep resurfacing. The hashtags won't die. And every new interview adds another layer to the mystery. Was it planned? Was it raw emotion? Or did Mel Gibson and Tyrus really just say what millions have been thinking all along? What do you think really happened in that studio? Was it a wake-up call for leaders who've grown too comfortable? Or just Hollywood bringing drama to politics again? Tell us in the comments. We actually read what you write. And if you want more moments like this, where entertainment meets reality and sparks fly on live TV, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. You don't want to miss the next story that has everyone questioning what's real and what's performance. Stay tuned, because the truth, or at least the internet's version of it, is just getting started.